can talk further about this now with the Institute for Security Studies researcher, Willem Els. Willem, a very good evening to you. We're grateful for your time. As we were just hearing then, the ministers from the security cluster today reassuring the country that they are prepared for any eventuality. A warranted response or an overreaction by your assessment?
Good evening to you. Tamikile, I think if we think back about what happened in July 2021, there's a lot of uncertainty amongst the public about how the security cluster is going to respond. But given the events of the recent days, especially when we saw that the leader of the EFF came out threatening and also giving away a lot of what they were planning to do, it gave the opportunity for the security cluster to get the NAJOINs together and to activate all the different structures, but also to plan for an event like this. So I think that this time is going to be a different ballgame.
And Minister Ntshavheni, I asked quite directly a few minutes ago if there was credible intelligence to the effect that there is, as they were saying, a push for regime change, basically, that suggests, would it not, an attempt basically to unseat a government through undemocratic means, and she would not confirm that on the record. When you hear a government talk about regime change, what does that suggest about the weight which they are giving Monday's national program of protests by the EFF?
Yeah, I think, in South Africa, we are guarded by our constitution that also protects the rule of law, and that is also what we promote. So any party or any person who actually contravene that, makes himself guilty of an offence, and it seems that based on the rhetoric that we heard from both the ministers that actually responded to this, they are this time serious that there will be consequences. So we will have to see whether they're going to follow up on that, whether there will be charges laid, and also it will depend what's going to pan out on Monday. The EFF have threatened to do some things. They have said that they were not going to break the law, but should they break the law and then there is not any forceful response in terms of legal actions against these perpetrators, then I think the security cluster and the ministers will lose face in the eyes of the public.
Just lastly then, Willem, the EFF has said that there isn't a single destination or single venue for their march on Monday, so people can gather wherever they are. How much of a complication would that pose from a police response level, even if it is not to deal with violence, but to monitor the demonstrations when you don't know where they will happen specifically?
Yeah, I think that is a deliberate attempt of the EFF to spread the resources of the police and the security cluster. But we must also be reassured that given the advance warning of this event and also the instruments that was put in place by the security cluster and the NAJOINs, we believe that they should have credible information intelligence on where things are going to happen, and we believe that they will focus on those areas and they will effectively deal with that.
And in terms of forecasting the likelihood of the demonstrations by the EFF, which Julius Malema said will be peaceful, even though they've told people to basically shut down for the day, how likely is it that these marches, if that's what it's going to be, or these protests, shall we say, could be infiltrated by other forces, basically hijacked, as we saw happening in KZN in 2021?
There's a likelihood of that, but also I think that will be used by the EFF to sort of distance themselves should there be any violence. But if we look at the recent past, where they have picketed and where the EFF has had some events, it normally turned into violence of some sort, and so we anticipate that there will be again some, but we also anticipate, well, in the wake of the preparations that have been made, but also in the strong stance taken by the security cluster, that there will be consequences for these people. It doesn't matter whether they are then of the EFF or they infiltrated, and of course that will then be filtered out when these people are then being interviewed and charged for these various crimes.
Thank you very much for that. Willem Els, researcher with the Institute for Security Studies. Thank you for your time tonight, sir.